Hi, folks. Welcome back to Money and Politics. And we're going to be doing a little bit of a different play today because we're going to be joined here, as we have been in the past, with my son Thomas. So we're going to be talking about where we are. And Tom, as far as Humbl goes, I should say, we're halfway through the year, which is kind of fascinating. It's on one hand gone fast, and on the other hand, when we look back at all the various things that we've gone through, we started off with Humbl being TSNP, didn't even have its own symbol. That came around in March. We got Tickery involved. We got the deal with Aria down in Chile. We got the Monster deal. There has been the whole reverse split controversy. So it's been a while since you and I had a chance to talk. And I know the viewers, based upon the comments we've had over the past, kind of appreciate some of your comments. So I wanted to bring you back and have us discuss it as we sit here in the middle of July. And it's literally been about, maybe 7 months since the merger. They had the SPAC that got Humbl to be a publicly traded company. Give us what your thoughts are on an overview, and then we'll do a deep dive into some of the specific issues.
I think if you had told somebody back in January, as we were seeing the stock price go up to $1.93, you go, you having fun, right? Of course I'm having fun. And we're with Humbl, we're making so much money out here. Yeah, you're making a lot of money right now, but let me tell you what, you think you're having fun right now. Over the next 7 months, Humbl is going to sign a deal with Athletes First to produce NFTs. We're going to have Aaron Rodgers. We're going to have Dak Prescott. We're going to have Jalen Ramsey on board. That person in January would go, heck, that's amazing. What else? Oh, you think we're done? No. It's not just NFL athletes. We're going to have NBA players through a sponsorship, a partnership we're going to have with Glushan Sports Management. And don't sleep on that just yet. We got the Olympics coming up. Humbl is going to be signing partnerships with several Olympic athletes. And no, we're not done just yet. We're going to have advisors coming onto this company from Rob Luna, you see on Fox Business. We're going to be having Rick Fox, former NBA player, champion with the LA Lakers. We're going to have people with deals in ticketing. Did I mention we acquired a ticketing company and we're going to be looking for another one? We're going to have so many people involved in this company, so many acquisitions. We also have a movie studio that produces trailers for Netflix series, Hollywood movies. They're going to be our in-house advertising studio. And you'd say all this to that person. You could say it to me back in January. Who knows who you'd say it to. And you'd ask them, well, what do you think the stock price is going to be at? Oh, what are we going to be at? $7, $10, $15? I can't believe all those developments. And you go, no, we're going to be at $1. Frankly, not even that, 99 cents. My interpretation of events so far is there has been so much good happening with this company. There's been a lot of very exciting developments. The only thing that hasn't been exciting, I'd say, was the delay of peer-to-peer, which they're still working on. We'll probably discuss that a little bit later. There has been so much good going on, so much expansion, so much growth. The only thing that hasn't reflected those positive developments just yet is the price. And I think that's somewhat of the story. It's a lot of growth. It's partnerships. We're going to be getting exposure of Humbl very soon. I've said every time on your show, nobody knows about Humbl. That's going to change when you're going to have NBA players as brand reps. It's going to change when you have what we all hope to be gold winners at the Olympics representing America as your reps. It's going to change when we're going to be having the NFTs of these future Hall of Fame NFL players. So I think the story right now about Humbl midway through the year is a lot of developments, but a slept-on stock. We've lost a lot of investors over fear, uncertainty, and doubt. A lot of bad theories put out by bad actors. And eventually, we're going to start seeing the stock price reflect a company that is making a lot of progress.
Well, speaking of the fears, one of the things in the last investor call we had, Brian Foote announced, or I don't remember if he announced it in the call or on Twitter, but that he was going to retire 100 million shares, or was it 93 million shares, but at the time it was $100 million.
It's $100 million worth
Right.
of shares.
But I think it was
shares.
about 93 million shares. Either way, it was costing him 90, or it was costing him about $100 million. So, and he did that, I think, as a good faith as far as getting down the share count. And, because it was still concerned. Give me your thoughts is where I'm going with. On the B shares, on that issue, we still have people saying, yeah, but they didn't do a 4-for-1 reverse split on those B shares that the initial investors got. And they got a too big of a sweetheart deal, the allegation is, for a 10,000 to 1. For every one B share, you get 10,000 common. So what have you got to say on that as far as the concerns of the investors and that we're going to go through dilution? And why don't we throw in while we're at it, the other comment is that we get online, well, they're going to have to do now another reverse split. And so people have that fear. So let's start with that.
In regards to the B shares, there's some questions that are legitimate. There's some current concerns which are foolish. A legitimate question is, and this hasn't been answered, is, all right, the conversion rate, it's 10,000 to 1. Why 10,000 to 1? Why did you settle on that? Have you seen that in other companies? Why that conversion rate? That's a fine question. I don't see so much concern online, and any critical response I give here is really not directed at your viewers. Your viewers tend to be fairly intelligent, level-headed people. My criticism is directed more at the people I find on online message boards. The problem with the B shares that was put out months ago with Seeking Alpha, where we saw the stock price, which was hovering around $3, and it then just plummeted to 1. Problem was that the theory was that there were going to be 5 billion shares entering the outstanding share count in December. And without anyone ever hearing anything from the company, people sold in mass. Now, since that mass sell-off and that article, it was a hit piece, what did we find out? We found out that it is literally impossible for there to be 5 billion shares added to the outstanding share count. Foote isn't going to sell a single share through 2022. The officers and directors have selling restrictions on their shares. That leaves 40% of the B shares in the hands of angel investors, who are early investors, and others who were granted stock who are friends and family. So unless you think Brian Foote's mom is going to sell every share she has in December, leading to the most awkward Thanksgiving dinner ever, what are you thankful for, Brian? Well, I'm thankful for my mom, who believed in me so much that I granted her shares in my company, and she held on to them for about 11 months and then sold everything. The family's yelling, Brian's miserable, he's getting drunk on gin. Worst Thanksgiving dinner ever. Unless you think that scenario is going to play out. I mean, this is how stupid it is. I've said previously on this channel, I expect some of those angel investors to sell their shares, some of their shares in December. I think it would be financially stupid not to sell some shares. It would also be financially stupid to sell all of your shares. These people are investors. They're not going to sell everything as soon as they can while this company is still in its infancy. So the concern about the B shares that I've seen has not been, well, it's the conversion rate, or why does this employee, can they really be worth this much money? I think those are fine questions to ask. The theory put out was that there were going to be 5 billion, 6 billion shares added. And not only is that not true, and you'd think that Brian Foote would have to have the worst family and friends in the world if they sold out everything, but uh, we've seen the exact opposite of dilution. I've just seen these bashers go, dilution, dilute, we're going to be diluted. It goes, if Brian Foote was some greedy SOB, well, early in the year, he retired 500 million shares. It's $500 million. He's all in it for the money, but he'll pass up on $500 million. He had removed shares, 90 million shares from the outstanding or from the float a couple of months ago, a month ago. And now we just saw him recently retire $100 million worth of B shares. So this whole narrative, it starts out with 5 billion, 6 billion, we're all screwed in December. And now it's like, well, okay, but maybe it's 2 billion. And okay, that greedy SOB Foote, yeah, he keeps retiring shares. So which is it, folks? Is this guy looking to scam you as he's retiring what would have been worth, $600 million of shares so far? The guy who's only in it for the money, but for whatever reason just wants to get rid of more than $500 million that he would be privy to. Their narrative doesn't add up. It's unfortunate to see that so many people sold over that issue. Is it going to be in my long-term financial interest that they did? Probably so, because we've had a stock price that's been around $1 for the past couple of months as opposed to $3. I was critical of the company previously, and I said that they could have explained the B share issue as soon as it came out. They could have put out their little diagram showing the selling, restrictions on the shares. But that didn't happen.
And one thing they have done since then, because one of the things I was critical of is just the communications that Brian was getting word out there through Twitter. They weren't putting out press releases. Now they are putting out press releases. And as we look at this, here's a 5-day chart, and we can see the action. If we look at the 1-month chart, it's been down, but here's something I was saying the other day. You look June 21, almost a month ago, we were at a $1.35, let's call it. So, and I said the other day when we went down, and I was looking, I think I forgot what I was saying, about 94 cents at the time, 95 cents. That, my goodness, if you bought it there and it took a year to go back to $1.30, you'd make 44%, and that it wasn't going to take a year to go back there. But to put it in perspective, even if you're not thinking in terms of going to $5, going to $10, going to where we think it has the potential to be, if it just went back to where it was a month ago, you'd be making 44% at these prices. Now, I don't know that you addressed, do you think there's going to be a reverse split? Talk about that, because that's what we sometimes hear. People think it's going to have to be a reverse split.
Yeah, the people who say there's going to be another reverse split, I say, okay, play that one out. There's going to be a reverse split. Explain the rationale behind it. Well, they did a reverse split the first time to try to get on NASDAQ, and clearly it didn't work. There's a misconception that the original reverse split was about getting on NASDAQ. The original reverse split was done because Humbl merged with a flooring company with 3 employees that had 4 billion outstanding shares. A flooring company with 3 employees with more outstanding shares than PayPal. Humbl needed those Tesoro outstanding shares as much as they needed the Tesoro ticker. It was never going to be the case that Humbl was going to hold on to Tesoro's outstanding share count. That reverse split had nothing to do with getting on NASDAQ. They had a price as a result of that outstanding share count as a result of the reverse split, that could get them within the territory of uplisting to NASDAQ, but the point wasn't NASDAQ. And so when you see people now go, well, NASDAQ, it didn't work out, we got to have another reverse split, I always say, play it out. We have 900 million outstanding shares. We have a stock price that's at $1. You'd like to get it $4 for an uplist, right? Play it out. What's the reverse split going to be? It can't be 2-for-1, right? Because then you'd just be going up to $2. 3-for-1, it can't be that because then you'd be at $3. 4-for-1, yeah, it'll be at 4-for-1. We'll be at $4, and then they'll uplist to NASDAQ. Okay, so you're going to have about, what, 220 million outstanding shares now, nowhere close to where you'd expect to be, being a fintech company. But fine, you did a 4-for-1 reverse split. What do you think is going to happen right after that's announced? That stock price that we're at right now with $1 is going to go to what? I don't know, 30 cents? Did you see how it dropped from 124 down to 88 cents the day they announced the previous reverse split? You think they're going to announce another one? And what's going to happen to the stock price? Investors are going to be so pissed off, they're going to flee en masse, hit the exits, and then you're going to be left with what? A stock price worth 40 cents, 30 cents? Then what does your 4-for-1 get you? Nothing. It makes no sense to do another reverse split. What are you going to have to do? A 10-for-1 just to make up for investors leaving? Okay, now what do you got? 90 million outstanding shares? You think the B shareholders are going to be happy when that reverse split hits that share count? There is no sane, rational explanation for this company to do another reverse split. It makes no sense. It wouldn't just make sense. It would be financial suicide. It would end the company. The first one wasn't about getting onto NASDAQ. It's about getting rid of these excess shares that Tesoro had. And in any way you play this out, another reverse split, for what purpose? Well, NASDAQ. To hell with NASDAQ, it'll end the company. So no, do I know Brian Foote personally? No. Could he secretly be some madman? Possibly. But a guy who is retiring shares from the outstanding share count, if he's just going to do another reverse split, why the hell are you retiring shares? You wouldn't do that if you're just going to do another reverse split.
That's a very good point. Not that the others weren't, but that's a very good point. And no, and this is why one of the things, folks, we wanted to do is just to have the time to answer some of these statements that people make. And, you really can't go into the level of detail on when I'm typing. Sometimes, frequently I'm responding in type, but you'd end up writing a book for one person. So, and I think, too, it's helpful to have basically, Tom and I are in agreement, but we don't discuss what his answers are going to be. So I think it's good for you to hear just from someone else besides me all the time. But yeah, I think this is the thing. I don't think, based upon what I see as just false information, I agree there's not going to be a reverse split. I don't think, as Thomas said, that the first reverse split, and by the time I said why this is a good thing, because all those extra shares, as Tom was saying, from Tesoro Enterprises were a drag on the company. Brian Foote wanted to get his handle on the company that he wanted to have, not have legacy leftovers from a flooring company. So get the new ticker symbol, get rid of the old shares, and start building the company he wanted to build. And that's what he's did and is doing. Now, as you said, Tom, I have also said when we look, let's say just going back to January, I think what we have seen is that Brian Foote and his team have done a remarkable job of getting an awful lot done. It's always hard. It's like moving out of your house and moving into something else. There's so many things you got to do, and it's like you're still going to work, but then you got to come home and box up clothing and do all the various things you got to do. It becomes 2 full-time jobs. So Brian's first-time full-time job is running the company, but the other thing is you had to hire people. You had to do these deals. And he did. And he's done these deals we mentioned, getting Tickery, getting Monster, getting the NFTs going, getting the ETXs being regulated so that they could be traded in the United States. Now having athletes first, having these people being signed up. And I had said earlier, and I'm just reminding people, and here's where I'd want you to get your thoughts. You kind of alluded to it a bit, relative to people still not knowing a lot about Humbl, and that's still true. And of course, now we got Rob Luna in there as well, giving his advice to Brian. Not that, I don't want to make it sound like everything Rob Luna would say Brian's just going to do, but it's going to be helpful. And as you want to go towards getting uplisted towards NASDAQ, that I think his Luna's advice would be helpful. But I think what we're going to see, and we have started to see it, now Brian Foote is having press releases put out, much better than just these tweets. We're getting and going to have more publicity. We're going to have the second quarter earnings coming out at the end of this month. And that, for the very first time in the history of this company, is going to be where we could have one whole quarter of even kind of operating, because that first quarter, I think, was just, opening the doors, putting furniture and hiring people and getting the ticker symbol. You just had to do the perfunctory things of getting the company physically established. So, we're going to have these earnings. We're going to be going to then June and, the fourth quarter coming out in January. I think now is the part of the history that we've had thus far where we can start to look at performance. You have to execute on the plan. I think they have a good plan. And now is where we can start to see, well, are we signing up the ETXs that we thought we would? Are you selling ticket sales as you thought you would? Are you doing all of those lines? So with that all said as a foundation, let me get your thoughts on kind of where are we and where do you see us going between now and the end of the year?
I'm not expecting much from the Q2 financials. Monster and Tickery, those acquisitions were completed in early June. I'm not sure how their revenue is going to be counted in the Q2 financials. I don't really know when you can start counting those financials, their revenues, when you didn't complete the acquisitions until early June, which is getting close to the end of the second quarter. Foote had said previously that it's Q3 and Q4 when they will be focusing on revenue. So that's really where I'm looking at. I'm not so much concerned about Q2 when you just completed those acquisitions. I'm really looking forward to Q3 and Q4. And going forward, Humbl will not be unknown forever. I'm excited to see what's going to happen in the Olympics. I'm not expecting any of these Olympic athletes to be, wearing their Humbl flags and putting their hand over their heart and singing praise to Brian Foote and the Humbl team. But let's hope they win gold and that they'll be going on some tours. We'll have some commercials hopefully made, some kind of ads made by Monster Creative. They'll have their podcast coming out in August. Could we see some of these Olympic athletes interviewed, some of the football players associated with Athletes First, some of the NBA players associated with Glushan Sports Management? At some point soon, word is going to start getting out about Humbl. That's what I'm focused on right now, or what I would say is I'm most excited about. I'll wait until Q3 and Q4 to really see what's going on with revenue, because right now Humbl doesn't have much of a presence in promoting themselves, and we know that's not always going to be the case. It's one of the reasons you got Monster Creative. But I'm not so much concerned about what are their revenues like right now when no one knows about you. It's more what's going to happen with Q3 and Q4 when you're using these athletes, you're using your podcast to spread the word about the company, and also just having these star athletes as NFTs. So there's going to be some marketing plan that they're going to have. I don't know what it is yet, but we're going to find out, and Humbl will not be the unknown company that it has been so far. So that's more what I'm looking forward to, not the Q2 financials. I don't expect much, but what's going to happen in Q3, Q4, and what are they going to do to get their message out? What are they going to be doing to get people to find out about the company? That's what I'm looking forward to as we close out the year.
Well, and the thing I would say is we have, just as we're talking, Brian Foote he had a photo yesterday in New York City. And the thing, when you have, 99% of the people that comment on money and politics are smart people with good insights, good recommendations. We always, welcome their comments. But the thing I also wanted to say is that one thing when you get some of these people posting negative things, the point is that what they're talking about is what is and what is known. And I always say, and pointing to the deals that Brian has already done, is what's happening that we don't know. That's the thing. And what is Brian doing in New York? You had a funny line about how people were trying to figure out what was going on with, or who that guy was in the photos with the Brian,
with the other
and
employees and the.
Well, I forgot what your line was, if you can say it.
I was like, well, who's this guy? Is he with the Lucchese family? Is he with the Gambinos? Is he just like looked like one of these Italian gangsters you'd see from the 80s in New York City? So that was just kind of the joke. I think it was found out who he was. It's something to do with crypto. I don't remember the guy's name, but somebody had posted his, I think his LinkedIn on StockTwits. So the mystery man has been identified. I'd have to go back to see who it was. But yeah, on their last CC, they had talked about, serious conversations about financing deals. So it wasn't a surprise to see him in New York. And so that kind of goes what you talked about. It's not what this company was doing 156,000 in revenue in their first quarter, which is more like half a quarter. This is a startup, folks. We shouldn't expect a lot of revenue nor profit right now. Again, this really isn't directed at your viewers. It's the stuff I see right now. Well, how do you justify $1 billion market cap on 156,000 in revenue? You don't. You can't. It's not what they did in the first quarter when it was half a quarter. It's not even what they're going to do in the second quarter. It's what is this company going to be next year and the year after?
Right, and let me bring something.
The financing deals they're getting in New York, they're getting Olympic athletes, NBA athletes, NFL athletes. This doesn't happen with some scam garbage company. You're not millionaires yet. Fine, nor am I. 7 months old, and look what they're getting done. Give them some time. Relájate.
And I want to bring this up, Tom, because here's Thad Bryson, who is in Humbl Nation here, and tweeted today, and this is kind of Guz underscore. I just grabbed this off Twitter. And he says, there's got to be something brewing with the emergence of Blocks token. Now, this is something else that was, I didn't grab it, but there's something else that was posted. Blocks token is honored to announce, we believe, the world's first Wyoming DAO. I mean, this gets to be involved, but the point is, let me go on. Emergence of Blocks token and Brian's trip to New York City is all connected. And then he goes, Terry, meaning me, he tells me to follow this up, and that this is the proprietary blockchain technology, Humbl's engine, which is probably being guided to market by the fintech blockchain venture capitals in New York City. So the bottom line is, while that's I know confusing what I was just saying there, but the big picture is there are deals going on behind the scenes. Brian Foote is not flying by the seat of his pants, I don't think. I think, there was a speech he gave in Amsterdam in April of 2019, 2 years ago. And he was talking about where the world's going with fintech and opportunities and tokenization. And we haven't even talked hardly about tokenization. So the company of Humbl is on the cutting edge here of a worldwide financial revolution. And, I've often referenced Cisco, but I do it for reasons, not just to say the stock went up, but the reason that Cisco shot up so much, so fast in, relatively short amount of time. And it was, by the way, short amount of time wasn't months, folks. It was like over 5 years. is because it was riding the wave of the internet coming into being, and their products built the internet, all these routers and other things they had. I would argue that Humbl is akin to Cisco back at the launch of the internet. That Humbl is at the launch of taking the world from paper currencies in the second world and third world nations and streamlining, taking the friction out of these transactional relationships with peer-to-peer and the other things. And that they are also going into Tickery, which is a very disseminated marketplace. It's 100 billion, but you got a bunch of mom and pops, and you got kind of relatively scattered companies. Humbl might have the wherewithal to really bring this with centralized management, but operate it in nations around the world. And as we've been told, this is like $100 billion industry. And as I said, just trying to be conservative here, if Humbl could get in the first year or two, or even three, a half of 1%. So it's not like I'm saying if we could get 20% of that. No, if we got a half of 1%, 1% would be $1 billion, a half percent would be $500 million a year in revenue. And that's just on tickets. So the long and short of it is, folks, I don't think you can look and evaluate the value of Humbl now, because it isn't what it's doing, it's what it will do. It's not what it is earnings, it's what it will be earning. And I think they have a lead both in concept as well as in many ways talent, and in some cases here with their patents, some technological ways. But I think a lot of other companies, even bigger companies, are playing catch up. So what is your thoughts, Tom, on just some of this?
My thoughts is I saw on StockTwits earlier today people posting about, was it DAO blocks Wyoming LLCs. Out of ignorance, I do not know what it all is. I just saw it earlier this morning. It's something the company will address later. I just don't have a comment on it because I just saw it earlier today, and I haven't. I don't know the whole.
It's funny saying that, and I don't either know, and we're not going to BS you when we don't know. Yeah, and the thing is, but I think what we can take away from this is, Tom, by the way, and probably a lot of people, I've been investing for 40 years. However, I only learned about what a SPAC was in December. So it's, the world of investing keeps changing, and overall it's changing for the better. But it's just like this, we have to keep learning. I didn't know, as I said publicly, I didn't know what an NFT was. It took me a long time to wrap my brain around that. Now, as we're going to get into tokenization. But here's the thing I would say. I think Brian knows this, and he really has, Brian Foote, and here's where one of his big talents, maybe the biggest talent, is that he has intellectually a periscope into the future, if you would. I think he sees what the trends are coming that are going to be more commonplace 5 years from now, but he has his fingers on the pulse of the future and where the world globally, in global financial, in trades, in moving money around the world, is going to be. We kind of take and I say we collectively take a pedestrian viewpoint, I think, a lot of times, to say, oh, we're going to move money just like Western Union. Well, yeah, on one hand, yes, but it's going to be so much more than that. And this is where I think Brian knows where he's going. And that is so much of the game of winning, to know where you want to go. Otherwise people are just like driving the backwoods, lost amidst the trees, hoping that if they take a right turn, it's going to bring them to where they want to go. Brian, on the other hand, is going down that highway amidst the trees with a compass, and he knows where he's going, and he knows the direction he needs to take the company. So that counts for an awful lot, and we have seen this time and time again. I was saying to someone the other day, a lot of people in retail 50 years ago, 55 years ago, I'm sure were snickering at this little guy Sam Walton and his little stores being built in small towns, and they were probably laughing their butts off. Like, why the hell would you build a store where there's only 4,000 people living there, and you're going to be, having a store in amongst a bunch of hicks who don't have a lot of money. And the people laughing at them were probably Sears and Kmart and Woolworths, all of who are either out of business or on the verge of going out of business. Sam Walton built a $1 billion business. He knew where the opportunities were. He had a plan, and he stuck to his plan. I think that's what we have with Humbl. And, I felt like I've been saying for 6 months now, folks, you just got to be patient. But it is something to say. Here we are, as it says right above here. We're mid-2021. We just launched in January for all practical purposes. I mean, we did the merger in December. But we're just now starting to rev up, putting gas in the car and starting to get this engine turning. We're just in the very early stages. I'll let you have a comment, Tom, if you have anything you want to add.
I agree with all of that. We are early. We're just getting started. I saw someone, online saying, "Well, I've been invested for 7 months, but I think it's time to give up." And I was like, you can do whatever you want, but 7 months in a startup? If you invested in Tesla when it first came out, it would have been about 3 years where you would have started to see the 10x of your money. So for someone to complain, 7 months, oh, wow, God, the patience of a saint you must have. 7 months, oh, wow. Man, God, I didn't know it was that long. Wow, the most longest I've ever held was 30 days, 7 months. If you got in Tesla when it first came out, it was going to take 3 years for you to get that 10x return. And then from 2013 through 2019, and God, I pray this doesn't help with Humbl, but from 2013 through 2019, you wouldn't have made any money with Tesla. It wasn't until 2020 hit that people really started to get rich. When it went up and up and up, getting thousands of shares, they recently did a forward split. But go look at that Tesla chart. It was the early investors who had to hold, yes, I'm sorry, Mr. Online Person, longer than 7 months. And then they really started making their money within the first 3 years after the company first came out. But it takes time after that. And I hope we're not flat like Tesla. I don't want that. I'd like some steady growth. I'm not going to celebrate flat. But you would have had to have held, you could sell some of your position, but you would have had to have held for 10 years for you to get really rich off of Tesla. So when people crap on the company, oh, you aren't rich yet, it's an investment. These are people who are day trading or swing trading, upset with the stock price that is for investors to get involved in. This isn't your swing trade. It's not your day trade. You can invest some money now. And hey, if the money that goes up to 140, you want to sell some shares, that's fantastic. But people slamming the price action are people who are looking to get rich quick, and it didn't happen, and they moved on somewhere else. I would quickly try to bring up this. I don't approach Humbl with a Pollyannish approach. This isn't, well, everything's always going to be great. You always trust what a CEO says. You never question anything they do. I've been in stocks where the CEO is crap. The management is horrible. I'll try to make this story quick. I got involved in a biotech company last year in April. They had a drug, Cytidine, CYDY is the symbol. I got in early April. They have a drug, leronlimab, that they were going to put into trials to try to get emergency use authorization for treating COVID. And I didn't care for the CEO. The guy just didn't come off as very transparent. Not only was he kind of unintelligible when he spoke, but the longer I was in, you'd get some good news. There were some doctors who really liked the drug. It got promoted by some other folks, the former head of virology from Stanford, and there was a lot of excitement around that drug and that stock. But time and time again, it comes down to the management. And summer of last year, I was saying to people online, I do not think this guy is the one that's going to take the company across the finish line. Oh, no, he's the guy you're worried about all this stuff. Well, ultimately, what happens is this. They have one clinical trial for mild to moderate patients. The trial failed. We're holding off on their severe to critical patients, right? Well, that's going to be the one. Trial failed. Didn't hit their primary endpoint. Icing on the cake, the CEO and the company were sued because the CEO issued to himself shares that he wasn't allowed to do that, and he sold them. They got sued by shareholders. Unfortunately, I didn't join that suit. And the judge presiding over that case said it was the worst case of unmitigated greed he had ever seen. Thankfully, I sold a lot of my shares before that happened. One day they had a conference call. It didn't make sense to me. I said online, this is BS. They're not hitting their marks. I'm out. My point in bringing this up is this. When people say Brian Foote is a criminal, Brian Foote took our shares, Brian Foote is only interested in himself, I've seen what all of that looks like in a company. That's what happened to Cytodyne. A CEO who pays himself $9 million a year to do nothing, to get no approvals anywhere in the world for his drug, but gives himself more shares, not retire shares, not takes $1 a year salary like Foote's doing, pays himself $9 million a year and gets sued by shareholders, costing them money that they really don't have to pay out. God help the people in that company. I still got shares because I like the drug, and who knows, maybe they get new management in October. I'm crossing my fingers. When a stock price falls, it can fall for a good reason. It can fall for a bad reason. Sometimes it falls for no reason that's responsible. COVID, general market conditions. Cytodyne is cheap. In January, it was $7. Now it's $1.30. Am I buying Cytodyne shares because it's cheap? No, because the CEO is a scumbag, and I won't buy another share of that company until he is gone. Humbl is down for a bad reason. I'm not buying Humbl because it's cheap. I'm buying Humbl because I still love the story of Humbl, and it went down for a bad reason involving it went down for a bad theory regarding the B shares. Cytodyne is cheap, and it's cheap for a damn good reason. The story with Cytodyne changed. They did not get approval for their drugs. I said from the beginning, eventually Humbl's share price is going to match what's going on with the company. That's why I continue to buy shares.
And I said at the time when Brian Foote, cut that $100 million and it really came out of his pocket. I said, on Twitter, here's once again showing you as a stand-up guy. So the bottom line, the big picture, we spent, a long time today because we haven't talked about some of the developments that have gone on with Thomas for a while. Tom, before we close out, any thoughts on, as far as you and I are planning on going to Nashville? Anything or thoughts you have on that? What are you looking forward to as far as going to Nashville?
Let's get some beers with folks down at the bar on Broadway. I'll try to behave myself, but yeah, it'll be fun. It'll be fun meeting everybody. We'll get some drinks. I don't know that I'll be at the Pilgrimage Festival. No offense, I'm just not a Dave Matthews fan. But, I don't know. Maybe I'll go. We'll just see what happens. I'd like to go to the Titans game on Sunday. We need to figure out from the company what's going on there. Do we have a certain section where we're buying tickets? Do I just show up and try to find people? So, Humbl, let us know what's going on with the Titans game. I'm looking forward to meeting some folks. Yeah, we'll have fun. It'll be a good time.
Yeah, I mean, there's people who I feel like I personally, I feel like I've kind of known them. Some of the people, or met them already. Some of the people I've interviewed, but there's all kinds of people who are, Twitter followers. That's and as well, you want to meet people in person. Allie in New York, Rebecca in Georgia, Scott down in Atlanta. others. I mean, that's where I'm looking forward to that. I'm sure Nashville is a fun city just on its own accord, but hopefully we meet Brian face to face, and some of the others who are working behind the scenes on the Humbl team, to say we appreciate their work. I think that's something else, by the way, and we'll close out here, but Brian's put together a team of good people. They have good resumes. From what I understand, that they are, first of all, they wouldn't have come to Humbl if they thought this was a dead end company. They have resumes that they could be hired for bigger salaries. I think they're foregoing some of the bigger salaries and working because they're getting stock shares, which is a good way to incentivize your people. They don't want to, let's say, I'm making these numbers up, but to illustrate the point, they don't want to say work for $300,000 with someplace when they could be maybe getting shares that as the company succeeds, they might end up being worth $50 million or $100 million. Yeah. And with that kind of an incentive, I want people like that to have an incentive because they're going to be helping to row the boat, the Humbl boat, towards, the future and profitability. And we are the shareholders get to go along for the ride. And that, in terms of investing, is what it's all about. I get to participate. Thomas does. All of us who have bought shares. I know nothing about blockchain technology. I could barely pronounce it. But I get to go along for the ride and take that ride into the future of changing the world of finance. And because we invest, we get to do that. And we too, just like those who are working at the company, we too, measured in proportion to our holding shares, can go ahead and profit for that. And for that reason, I would say that as we look at the stock price and we say, oh my goodness, look at Humbl right now and how it is where it is, still right at this moment, below $1. Earlier in the year, people were saying, boy, I wish I would have known about Humbl back in December. I could have been buying it at 22 cents. Well, folks, now you can't. I mean, this is about right now, it's about roughly 25, 24 cents, before the split. And here's your opportunity. At 97 cents and, plus 97 and a half cents. My goodness, if 5 years from now that was $20, we're not talking about going to $200. If that was in 5 years, $20, look at the return you would have. So the opportunity, I think, hopefully you get this from both Tom and I today, the opportunity is still there. It's still rich. And I think, it's a company worth going along because you're not just going along, as I said before. This isn't like buying Coca-Cola. This is participating in a new revolution, just like I saw when I bought Cisco back in the 90s, that we were launching a revolution of the internet, and we know how that changed the world. You're going to be able to look back in 5 and 10 years from now and go, I was in on Humbl from the beginning. That's what this is. And people will probably look at this video 5, 10 years from now and laugh that we had to explain some of the things we've explained and thought, oh my God, can you believe that was a concern when they were only 7 months old?
I hope. I've thought about that. I hope. Yeah.
So Tom, unless you have something else, I think we'll sign off and say goodbye. Do you have any last words?
Yeah, just to say, let's say this is that, when Humbl hit $1.93, I think on February 8th, I had a friend invested in the company and I texted him and I said, hey, this is great. But the best thing for me to happen long term is for this stock to crater to 40 cents. Never thought that would happen. And it's fallen post reverse split well below 40 cents. We're at 25 cents right now. I am not sweating it. I've been spending the past months accumulating at these prices. Frankly, it's been fantastic. I don't mind if it goes a little lower. I like the stock at $3. I damn well like it at 97 cents.
I can't
Story
remember.
hasn't changed.
Yeah, I can't remember the company right now, but there have been times in the past where I'm like, I knew this was going to go up. Why the hell didn't I buy more when it was cheap?
I've had that regrets with a couple of other stocks when stocks have fallen and it's like, okay, I'll buy some, and then it goes up and you go, oh, I wish I would have bought more. So me personally, it's, yeah, fine, you're at 98 cents, you went down for a bad reason. I understand why people. I hope it doesn't take till December for people to realize, oh, I guess the sky didn't fall, we didn't have every angel investor sell every share. Okay, we'll get back in. I mean, hopefully it doesn't take till December for this stock price to recover.
And the
But
thing I would
yeah,
say at 97 cents, folks, what's the upside potential? Enormous. Enormous, right? What's the downside risk? Not much from 97 cents. I mean,
you hit 76 cents again, bounce off that and go to a
yeah,
buck
I mean, look,
70. I
they're
mean,
not on the edge of bankruptcy here. They're
no.
going. They got them. They've got their financing
Yeah,
together.
they have no debt. They're in New York City getting new financing deals, we expect. They're not going away anytime soon.
Right.
So, yeah.
All right. So probably most of the people had to leave and go eat dinner or something before they got to the end of the
Got to
video.
use the bathroom. Yeah. It'll be time to go to Nashville by the time we're done with this video. We need to get in the car.
Okay, Tom, this is chapter 1. Let's go to chapter 2 now in the video. We're going on our 5-hour. You know what we ought to do?
I got to get on with my day.
Sometime we'll work out to where we can be doing it live on YouTube and taking questions from the audience as we do it. That would be fun. But for now, we'll sign off. We've certainly gone 50 minutes, and I think we've milked the cow for today. Okay?
Yeah.
All right.
See you all in Nashville. Yeah.
See you, folks. Thanks for watching. Give us a thumbs up. Certainly leave us your comments, and we will read them and with pleasure. And until then, till Monday, we'll say goodbye.